Hey there, traveler. Welcome to the Kling Connection. Whether you're chasing adventure, inspiration, or just need a break from the ordinary, this is your place to reconnect, recharge, and rediscover the joy of the journey.
From sunrise hikes to unexpected roadside gems, we're taking you along for the ride, exploring places, meeting people, and making memories that stick.
Let's go explore. Where purpose meets the path, and let's make every mile meaningful.
Where every road leads to a new story and every destination brings a fresh perspective.
Welcome to the Kling Connection, fam.
'Hey Kling Connection fam, it's Sean and Shayna, and guess what? We just landed in stunning St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands.
"30 minutes later."
This Caribbean gem is known for its crystal clear turquoise waters, breathtaking beaches, and vibrant island cultures. Stick around, because we're diving into the beautiful food, the beauty, and the adventures of St. Thomas. Let's go.
Kling Connection, you guys are gonna love this. So we finished up a nice breakfast at our Island View guest house. It was amazing. The chef is phenomenal. We jumped in the Jeep, took a little off-road touring of the island, and we landed here at Hull Beach. I can't explain to you. We just took the Jeep and off we went. The water here is like crystal clear. Follow me, come here. Now, if we were smart, we would have brought our bathing suits and our towels, but we didn't know we were going to land here. This water is like clearly to the bottom, straight. I mean, it doesn't get any more clear than this. So I think we might end up taking the Jeep back, getting our suits and towels, and making a day of this place, because I certainly could stay here for the day. Pack up a little picnic maybe, stop at the grocery store. I think that might be what we're gonna do. So we'll see. Maybe I can convince Sean to spend the beach day here. There's a little boat dock, or not boat dock, but a little boat skiff here that you can take the boats out here, and you can see people just have them out. They can go swim out to them and take them wherever they want, the little islands out there, and take it for a little spin. It's a perfect getup. I mean, just come out to shore, go out to the water. What's better than that? It's cool. These guys are going to go out scuba. You can see they have their equipment on, and they're getting all set up and using their safety precautions. That's neat. I wonder how far out they're going to go.
Hey Kling Connection fam, like Shayna said, we came to this beautiful beach called Hull Beach. But over the course of this video, we're going to be exploring some of the hidden gems, or maybe not so hidden gems, to make your trip in the U.S. Virgin Islands at St. Thomas memorable. We're here for a few days, so we're not spending an entire week, so we're going to try to tackle some of the biggest things that we can tackle and share with you guys some adventures. So if you're going to book your trip to here, you'll have an idea where to go. And we're also going to put links below to tell you who to book it through. Maybe Emily Smith with Dream Vacations or one of our other affiliates. We'll leave those links below in the description. And we're going to explore and have a great time here in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Hey, Biggs. I like driving this Jeep. Just make sure you're on the left side. Because if you're on the right side, it's the wrong side. You're in the St. Thomas. The right side is the wrong side. So this is Main Street here on St. Thomas, and you can see that there's a lot of designer stores and stuff, but duty free, you know, so if you want to come down here and get your jewels and your diamonds and your art and your expensive things, you know, come by and pick up your duty free and take it home. Make sure you declare it in your customs, because apparently the US government will take stuff that you don't declare. We've heard some stories, so you want to do that, but you know, come and get your expensive things here at St. Thomas. We were driving through the Main Street. I talked about the jewels and the, you know, expensive things you can buy duty free, and we found this little flea market area, has a little shopping. We always have to find our magnet, so we're looking for our magnet. I found the perfect magnet. It has a sea turtle with shells and sea things inside. And we're gonna go see the sea turtles tomorrow when we go snorkeling. It's a big adventure tomorrow. You'll get to see it all live on Kling Connection. So anyway, there's our St. Thomas magnet for the refrigerator.
We're walking around this part of town here on the waterfront. First of all, this water is gorgeous. We're from Florida, as you guys all know if you follow the channel, and there's certain areas like Clearwater that are very nice, but this water is a very interesting turquoise blue. And in the back you have a bunch of sailboats, and even further back on these little islands you have people that have houses. I think people might live on these sailboats. I love sailboats. I'd love to learn how to sail. You know, maybe at this point in my life I'll get involved with it. But we're gonna be walking around and checking out like the markets and stuff. There's so many cool things, and you know, people are afraid to come to some of these islands because they're afraid of the crime. So far, we haven't even really run into any type of crime. Yeah, we saw some homeless people, but no more than what we see in Tampa. And everybody's been cool. The police are out. The tourists are here. The islanders have all been nice. So we're gonna go around, check out some local history, check out some of the buildings, listen to loud motorcycles as I'm recording as they come past. We're gonna do all that fun stuff. So also, just to give you a heads up, we're gonna have Shayna a little bit more on the camera for this, because she's better looking than me on the camera. Let's face it, guys, you guys like to look at her a lot more than me. So let's go around, check out the downtown Main Street. Now, just like I said on Whole Beach, we were going to show you some interesting places if you only had a few days to come out to St. Thomas. And one of the places here is called Fort Christian. Now, after walking around the flea market and checking out Main Street, there, right down the road is Fort Christian. Now, this was built by the Dutch in the 1600s and remained pretty much active for a long time. Behind me is a U.S. Coast Guard base. So a little bit of interesting information is, this was actually a Dutch colony, or sorry, Denmark. I take it back. Denmark was part of their colony until right around World War I, when the U.S. took control of it in 1916. Here is some cool cannons. This is definitely old. I mean, you can see the old pitted steel that somebody did when they forged it, and it's got the bands around it that hold it together. And then all sorts of monuments and stuff like that are around here. So we're going to take a quick walk around Fort Christian and check it out. Now, the Virgin Islands is a U.S. territory now, and they do have representation in Congress, although they don't have voting rights. Here in this location, across the street from Fort Christian, is a legislative building for the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, I'm not going to try to step in here because I don't know if we're allowed in here. I don't see any guards, but I don't want to take the risk of getting arrested by the Virgin Island Police Department or anybody else. And right next to it is the U.S. Coast Guard. But if you get a chance, we're checking out Fort Christian, and maybe they offer a tour here. We don't know, but this would be also a really cool location to check out. Here's the old fort, St. Christian, built in, I believe they said 1680, and it's had numerous uses through the years. Now, this is downtown. It's closed today, so we won't be able to get in, unfortunately, but it's hard to believe that this fort is older than the United States itself. Pretty cool. There's some definite modern improvements that you can see on the video, but it also has a really cool double door, and it looks like this stuff was built by Shell. It's really, really neat. Love to get in it, but unfortunately, this time we won't be able to. The water here is amazing, and if you know Shayna, everybody, she'll run right towards the water. She's a little bit more adventurous than me. I guess she's the yin to my yang. You know, I'm more the business guy. She's more the adventure girl. But she loves this water.
Standing here by the water, you can feel that cool breeze coming off. The sun is warm. You get to watch all the pelicans diving down for their fish. It's just so relaxing, and God, you could just stay here for hours and just watch the water, sailboats, catamarans coming in and out. I said to Sean, if I had a hammock or a little swing or something, I would say just call me tomorrow. It's our second night in St. Thomas, and we decided to go out to dinner, and we stopped here at Margaritaville. It's a beautiful late afternoon, and we're gonna sit by the water here and have a bite to eat, and I can't wait. We're gonna check out the scene here and enjoy the evening together.
Now, just like I told you earlier, we're gonna try to show you some cool places. Now, Margaritavilles are all over the world. I've been to multiple of them, but everybody at the airport was telling us we had to come to this Margaritaville. We can see why. The water is great, and it's a nice cool breeze off the ocean. So let's figure out and visit another place that you should go to when you come to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, Margaritaville.
Have some coconut shrimp with some fresh mashed potatoes and vegetables, which looks so good. And there's some marmalade here to dip my coconut shrimp in, and I'm gonna share some with Sean. And my belly is hungry. Being out in the sun makes you so hungry. And Sean, he got some jambalaya. Oh yeah. It's got some shrimp right on top. Yeah. He approves. He's just going in. Yes.
I'm hungry.
He is hungry.
Well, we just wrapped up at Margaritaville, and you know, it was pretty good. I mean, obviously it's a chain, so it's not island cooking, but it was a great view, great time. They have a little club next door. You can probably hear it behind me. We couldn't get into it because I guess you had to be a member. So we're going to wrap it up for today and start our next adventure. So if you're in the Virgin Islands, give Margaritaville a shot. It's a nice view. Staff is really courteous, and the food was very prompt.
Hey guys, so we're on day 3, and we're getting ready to go snorkeling, and we're gonna see the sea turtles, and we can't wait. This is one of my favorite things to do, be around the water and be in the water and all about the water. So come join the Kling Connection as we go snorkeling with the sea turtles.
Last day.
Hey, Kling Connection fam.
We're wrapping up here in St. Thomas, and we have loved every second of it.
Yep, we're going to be heading out in about a half hour, catching our plane back to Florida. And we kind of wanted to do a little recap on what went on and how we enjoyed our time here.
If you've never been to St. Thomas like we haven't, and this was our first time, try out everything you can. The food's delicious, the excursions are wonderful. We went snorkeling with the sea turtles. How awesome was it? It was so cool. We saw them coming up, taking their breaths, going back down. It's awesome. You guys should come and visit.
Yep, and the people here were amazing. Some things to be really cognizant about is it's not cheap, so be aware that when you come, you're going to spend a little bit of money and spend a little time waiting because things do move on island time. But other than that, it was a good deal, and we will eventually probably do an outtake video on what happened with us and our Jeep when we broke down, but we didn't get any of that on video. So anyway, we're going to be wrapping it up here and heading back to good old Florida and wrapping up this episode of the Kling Connection. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss another Kling Connection episode. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Rumble. We're also on TikTok. And I think that's it, right? Our website.
Yeah, we're on everything.
We're on everything. Odyssey. So, like we saw, make sure to follow us and share the videos and everything else like that.
Yep. And we love you as much as you love us, so don't miss another episode.
And until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Bye, guys.
Bonus clip.
Hello, kamusta po sa inyong lahat? Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe po sa YouTube channel ng Kling Connection. Maraming salamat po!
Are you tired of business coaches who promise the moon but deliver? Well, nothing? Then it's time to meet Sean Kling. He's not here to tell you what you want to hear. He's here to tell you what you need to hear. With decades of real-world experience under his belt, Sean cuts through the noise and delivers sharp-witted insights that get results. He's built for leaders who are serious about scaling and dominating their industry. Stop settling for sugar-coated advice. It's time for the straight truth that fuels success. Work with Sean Kling. Visit SeanKling.com to book your power call, coaching session, or explore partnership opportunities today. Outwork them all. Outthink, outsmart, outlast.
Welcome to the Kling Connection Travel Talk podcast, where the world of travel comes to life through real conversations. Hosted by Sean Kling, each episode explores the highs and lows of life on the road, connecting with travelers, industry insiders, and digital nomads to uncover expert tips, budget hacks, and inspiring stories. Whether you're a weekend explorer, a full-time adventurer, or simply wanderlust curious, Sean brings first-hand advice, destination insights, and honest takes from those shaping the global travel scene. Join Sean Kling.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Kling Connection. I'm Sean Kling, your host today, and we got a great treat for you. We have Miss Letitia Johnson, a Texas native that is a vlogger and does a podcast with her daughter and travels around the world. She has been involved in various different industries, everything from the airline industry to the cruising industry and everything in between. And we are excited to have her. This is going to be a great show, and she's got a wealth of knowledge that she wants to share with everybody around the world. So welcome to the show, Letitia.
Well, thank you so much. I really am flattered that you reached out and gave me the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
It's our pleasure to have you. And I mean, we've checked into you. We've looked at a lot of your stuff, and you have an amazing story. You sounds like you have an amazing family. I can't wait to hear about your daughter. You said you had triplets, which is interesting. Can't wait to hear about your travel experiences and the things that you do as far as working in the airline industry and the cruise industry and everything like that. So first of all, let's start off with the place that people can find you. Like, where are you at?
Okay, well, it's kind of unusual, but we have so many different avenues over here. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, honestly. So I used to have my own advertising agency, and that's long gone, but that used to be called the J3 Group because I had the 3 kids. And currently, my daughter, she wanted to do a podcast. So we have a podcast called Mother, Daughter, God. It's just mother.daughter.god. And then, in addition to that, I have some fun stuff sometimes on Etsy. I've written a devotional book out there for some kids, and that's out on the Home Little Home. I also have an Instagram, both with Mother Daughter God and an Instagram with the Home Little Home. So I am so diverse and out there. It's just crazy. I have too many ideas, I think, for myself or others. So there's lots of places you can find me.
That's cool. I mean, like, I'm kind of the same way. I've written a book, and we're all over the place. Shayna and I have done all sorts of social media. We have this channel, we have a history channel, we have all sorts of stuff, a business channel. So that's really cool. So Mother, Daughter, God. Obviously, you said you're a devout person, but that's very trifecta sounding. What made you guys go with that name?
Well, my daughter actually approached me. So I do have triplets. I have 2 girls and a boy, and the youngest one is Avery. She graduated from the University of Arkansas, and we're pretty, tight and close. And she's one to want to come to me all the time for advice or some kind of information. What I think about topics, which is rare. I think, when you hit about 22, 23, usually kids don't really care what we have to say. And she just said, Mom, there's so much information you give me, and I pass it on to my girlfriends. And I just feel like there's not a lot of relationships like ours. And so I think that if we did a podcast, we could give a lot of really great information and advice out there to others like her in her age group and maybe beyond. And so she wanted to start the podcast. And I thought, well, that's great. But, I never want to give the advice thinking that I'm the sole say on anything and that my way is the right way. So I'm always clear to say like this worked for us, maybe not for others, but really the direction that I've always tried to guide my kids on, the way I parent them, and my any way I try to do things is usually founded by a biblical base in my relationship with the Lord. So I just wanted to add that in that anything that we say and talk about and the advice we give is probably going to be influenced in that direction.
I support that 100% because in today's world, I think we need a little bit more of that. I think people need to reel themselves back in and become a little bit more wholesome in what they do. And that's really great that you have a great relationship with the daughters, your daughter, because, a lot of parents don't know how to work with their kids, or they don't know how to communicate with their kids, or they don't, as they get older, they get a little bit more distant from their kids because the interests change for them. That kind of brings me to my first couple questions here. You're in Texas,
Yes.
and that's the middle of the country. So you're probably just as far from California as you are from, say, Atlanta, Georgia in flight time. And you actually worked in the airline industry. Is that correct?
That's right. I did. I was born and raised here in Texas, but after college, I met my husband in college, and he was from the Fort Worth area. So not much to do in my small town of about 600 where I grew up to do. So I knew I wasn't going to get to have a career there. So I followed him here to North Texas. I'm literally like 6 miles away from the DFW airport. As you know, that's a major hub for the United States. You can't really do much traveling if you're not hitting somewhere in Dallas for a lot of connections. And American Airlines is in our back door, as well as Southwest Airlines. So at the very young age of, I think, 22 out of college, I started my career with American Airlines.
Okay, and what exactly did you do? I mean, if for American Airlines, were you there a long time? And what was the career path that you took there?
Well, gosh, the economy was really terrible back then. It's kind of like it is today. Was difficult to get a job. And so American at the time had only 2 real options for you to enter into their career force. You were either going to be in the actual airline, like stewardess, at the time is what we would call them, flight attendants, and pilots, co-pilots, etc. Or you could go into the corporate side as a provisional, unless you had your master's degree. And so a provisional was kind of like a temp agency within American, and you were just placed kind of anywhere. And it was actually kind of, now looking back, a cool option to do because they tested the waters with you and kind of saw saw if you're going to be a good fit. And if you were a good fit, then they would hire you on full time. So that's what I did. And I went into the sales organization. And now looking back, my span of 30 years here, my career, it's always kind of been helping that sales portion, doing marketing and events and those kind of things for our sales team in the travel business. So I worked in the sales department and supported the sales group across the nation. And then I shortly moved over to the corporate advertising and marketing department and did a lot of direct mail to our Advantage customers. There with our premium customers as well. Back in the day when we really spent a lot of time and money wooing people to be in our premium classic, first class, business class, and we cared about those platinum Advantage members. And then I did a short stint over in AMR Investments and got my Series 6 and 63 license, which is totally random, but it was a mutual fund company that American owned. And then I missed the airline, so I came back over to AA Vacations, worked with the all-inclusive vacation world, and handled the marketing for that line, where we would work with third-party vendors like a Sheraton or a Hyatt or someone like that, and we would put a robust promotion together. Say like, we're going to give you 10,000 Advantage miles if you book with Sheraton, put your flight with American, just one of kind of these all-inclusive that we would build, and then you'd get the Advantage miles if you book through us. So that's kind of where I ended my first round with American, was there. And then I had my family quickly, I say to people, because I had the triplets, and thought I might want to try this whole stay-at-home mom thing. And that really was not my cup of tea. I applaud all mothers that can be with their children all day. So that was really, honestly, at about the same time that we had 9/11. So in 9/11, of course, the world stopped for a little bit, especially for the airlines. And it was a very difficult time with American Airlines, losing planes, people, staff, all the things. Was just a terrible situation. So a few weeks after that happened, I reached out to my VP of sales and marketing for AA Vacations. And I was like, hey, I was kind of running this department with what we needed to do. I know what kind of copywriting we need and the printers and all the vendors. I know what we were paying. And I was actually at the time making a profit for them on the bottom line. So I just kind of pitched out that I would be happy to try to continue to do that work for them. I would do it at a 20% discount than they were paying, and I'd give them 90 days on the books if they would take a chance on me. And they called me 2 weeks later and they let me have the business. So that's how I started my advertising agency with AA Vacations as my first account, which was super great.
That's really interesting. And being, you and I are the same generation. My mother always told me, never ask a woman her age, but I'm going to assume that you and I are the same generation. Being somebody that worked in the airline pre 9/11 and then post 9/11 associated with the airlines, I can personally say, and I didn't work with the airlines, I had just gotten out of the Army at the time, the world of travel changed overnight. I remember being able to go to an airport, being 20 minutes before a flight,
For sure.
Shoes off. You could take a bottle of shampoo with you, and everything. And the airlines changed overnight. And it's now been 25 years, almost 24 years, 25 years. And a lot of the ways that we used to get into the airline to get a plane have not gone back. And I don't see them going back. What type, in your opinion, what type of, outside of the TSA type of things that we all experience, unless you get pre-TSA, then you don't take your shoes off, and you're 85 years old, you don't take a sweater off. What type of things did you see change on your end as far as, from pre 9/11 to post 9/11? That's really interesting. I've actually never talked to somebody that was involved in the industry at that time.
Yeah. First I would say the biggest thought I had was pre 9/11. I worked at corporate headquarters right here in Fort Worth. It was very easy to walk into our building, walk straight into corporate headquarters, go up the elevator, and walk in anywhere in our building. And prior to this happening, I did have the thought a couple of times, like, wow, it would be really easy for somebody who's a little crazy to just walk into this building, go to the 6th floor, walk into Mr. Crandall's office, and demand pretty much anything he wants, and he has the entire fleet in his hands. So I did have that thought a few times, but then I thought, well, that would never happen. So then, yes, right after 9/11, they shut all of that down, even from a corporate standpoint. We all had to have badges. We had secure doors. Not that you couldn't still probably tailgate if you wanted to at the time when I was doing it, but now they've even tightened that up even more. If I go and visit friends or if I have a meeting there, certainly they're even more cautious about that. They're not going to let you tailgate into the building. So that was one of the things I thought was interesting that they changed on the corporate side. From the airline and airport side, I think that it's really more personal. And the fact that, we non-revved, like you said, we could just decide at the last minute to hop over to the airport, run in, grab a flight 20, 30 minutes beforehand. You're going to be the last person on that plane anyway. It didn't really matter if you were there an hour before or not. Yeah. And one of the things I really miss about it, and I get a little emotional because I get sad when I see other people get sad. I don't know why. I guess I'm an empath, but I just remember the days of you could just walk into the airport and wait for your people to come off the plane, right? Or you could go with them and sit with them until they got onto the plane and hug them goodbye or greet them hello. And there's so much emotion and so much love that you see just being a bystander, when we call it people watching, I suppose. But I would just sometimes sit at the airport waiting for a flight and watch moms and dads kissing their kids goodbye and maybe sending them to college or greeting someone they haven't seen in so long and the happiness of saying hi to them when they come through that, door after they've been on the jet bridge. So that is gone. You don't get to see that anymore. And rarely do you come out, maybe you see a little kid holding a sign like, "Hi, Mom, welcome home," at the baggage carousel or something like that. But I think that's missing for me personally. And I just loved those little emotional touch points that we used to have.
Yeah, you used to see pictures. I mean, this is a little bit before my time, but men would wear a business suit. Women would get dressed up on an airplane.
Oh, yes.
I remember people used to be able to smoke on airplanes when I was a kid.
Yes.
The little ashtray thing on the armrest, and
yes,
like, stop that. I remember going to Disney World in the mid to early 80s with my parents, and I was playing with the ashtray, and my dad was a heavy smoker at the time. Like, stop, get it on.
Yeah, I think the smokers always had to be in the back of the plane. And now I think, what did that really matter? That's kind of funny that we actually did that. It was crazy. But yeah, just, different times and all things change and everything evolves and we move forward. So here we are today.
So I mean, you worked in advertising, you worked with the airline for a number of years, and a lot of our listeners are world travelers. And we know that you worked in other industries before, but with the airline, is there any secret hacks or any type of things that people may want to know about, maybe points or how to get trips, or if they miss a flight, or if a flight's canceled, or this type of stuff? Any of that type of stuff that maybe our viewers might be able to listen to?
I think I probably don't know as much as you think I do because I wasn't on the revenue side, but I think a thing that people don't understand, and maybe if you're very worldly travel, you do understand this, but, talking about points and all the things, but we just called them buckets. The seat was a bucket, right? And you would have these different buckets, like a K seat or a B seat or whatever they would want to call it, just the letter. And so a lot of people don't understand is that, why did I get on the plane and I paid $350 for my seat, and the person next to me says they spent, $189 or something like that. So, that happens in all the industries. It happens in the cruise industry. And I think people just need to understand it's a revenue management situation. You have your premium seats and you want to get those sold as quickly as you can at the highest prices you can. Of course, they have to make money and stay in business. And then every airline has a dedicated amount of seats that they've contracted out, and they kind of dump them off to be wholesale. So that's your Expedias or your Travelocities, your Pricelines, things like that, where you go on and they want to buy your airline through, those people. So they're buying it at a discount. They're barely making maybe a little bit of a markup so that you will buy that airline and package it with a hotel, make it kind of your own little all-inclusive. And they know that they will probably hold on to that booking longer if they can always attach airline to it. We've just seen historically with the booking patterns that if you have airline associated with your booking, that you're not probably going to cancel that trip as easily. So I think people just need to understand that it can work for you and against you on how far you book out. I think if you're going to go to Europe, and traditionally the last few years, the longer you waited and the closer into booking, you're paying a much higher rate than you would if you would have done it about 18 months before, or well, I don't even think you can book that far out, like it's like a year out. But then, conversely, if you're with the cruise industry, if you wait till the very last minute, they're dumping those cabins and you can get them pretty cheap. So it just really comes down to revenue management. And I thankfully didn't ever have to work in that world, but they've really gotten to be experts as you will see, because I don't know how many times I've been on the airplane and there's an empty seat, because they have got it just so fine tuned to exactly where they need to sell seats into which, buckets they need to put them into. So the days of non-revving, I think, are gone, honestly. Like the benefit of being able to work for an airline and non-rev somewhere, I saw it trending to be less and less of a benefit. And I would say today it's got to be, almost non-existent, because it's very difficult to get one of those empty seats.
Yeah, I was on a plane this week, and you see a lot of stuff online where now people are fighting on airplanes and
Yes.
getting taken off. And we were on a plane, and a lady was sitting in the seat in front of us. And a man that I think he had throat cancer or something. He had a hard time to talk, and he had one of those like wands that helped him talk. And he wanted to sit in his seat. And the lady's like, "Well, why don't you just make it easier and sit over there?" And he's like, "I'll wait," And like it was like almost this fight on the plane, and I'm just like, "Come on, lady, just give the guy his seat." It's you see now a lot of stuff on TV and on the internet about the
For sure.
fighting on the airline, and it's not really worth it too, because people get you banned for life, you get arrested, go to jail. You
Oh,
get
yeah.
fined.
Terrible. They'd have no idea how serious it can be, right?
Oh yeah, the airline industry does not play, and
No.
you're not dealing with just municipal things; you're dealing with federal things at that level, and it's not the same,
That's for sure.
So, but you're in Dallas Fort Worth, and I'm a big history geek, and I have been to Dallas Fort Worth, and I absolutely I love the Fort Worth stockyards. I think they're really, really cool. We actually shot a video in the Fort Worth stockyards, and I've also been to the place where John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and the little X's on the road and stuff like that. And as a world traveler, as somebody that's worked in the airline industry, and we're going to get into the cruise stuff here in a second, but what are some of the coolest places that you got to see while flying?
Oh, gosh. Oof. Oh, man. You're really putting me on the spot. Some cool places. I think flying over the Alps is just actually something that's really beautiful. One of the favorite things I love to fly, and it's not worldly, is going into Chicago, honestly. I love flying in there in the wintertime because you can see still the ice on the lake. And that's kind of a cool situation because they have to fly way over on the water before they come back into land. Recently, I just flew. We were in Alaska, and we were flying to Dawson City, which is way up north in Canada. I think we were like 180 miles south of the Arctic Circle. Just flying over, that was cool. When we were coming in, I will not know this proper name, but basically there's these, they look like ridges in the ground. And I was like, what is that? And I was told that because of the gold mining, that was where they would dig all, the soil and dump it. And so it's like just tons and tons of little long mounds. If you can just imagine people digging, and pulling up the soil and sifting and then throwing the dirt over, and constantly doing that from both sides of like trudges. And then you have this like little ant mound that's, going down long. And there were hundreds of these, thousands of them. It was amazing. And they're probably 100 years old because of people that were, going back 100, 150 years ago in the gold rush. So that was super interesting lately as well. But you put me on the spot. There's just so many great things to see. But unfortunately, sometimes you don't see anything at all, right? Because the weather's not good and you're just like, bummer, this, it's terrible. One of the best sights is when you're flying home and you look out and you can say, oh, I can see, that car dealership sign, or I see that water tower, and that you're about to land and you're going to be home, because it's always good to come home.
Yeah, the trip home. And it's kind of cool that you flew over the Alps, and then now you're talking about Alaska, the gold rush. And which brings me to we were kind of talking and when we were setting this up, and you work with a Alaska cruise line in Alaska, or you went to Alaska or something?
Yeah. So I work currently for Holland America Line, which is a cruise line that is under the Carnival Corporation. So I used to work for another competitor, Celebrity Cruises, but I do currently work for Holland America, and we are the first in Alaska and the best in Alaska. We tout. We were sailing there before Alaska was even a state. So we've been sailing for over 150 years, and we're super proud of our product in the Alaska market.
So Alaska, Seward's Folly, everybody calls it that. But my grandfather, my late grandfather, he's been dead for 26 years, something like that. Always wanted to go to Alaska. He loved animals. He loved the wildlife. He always wanted to go see, at a distance, obviously, he's not going to run up on a grizzly bear, but he wants to see grizzly bear, moose, that type of stuff. And, a lot of people have been seeing that Alaska has been really growing in popularity, and a lot of travel vloggers, YouTubers, podcasters are going to Alaska. When I think Alaska, I think of barren wasteland outside of what I've seen on documentaries and travel vlogs. And, my ex-wife's grandfather built the Alcan Highway during World War II from the United States to Alaska. He was an engineer in the Army during that. And I saw pictures of what it looked like in the 1940s, and it obviously probably doesn't look too much like that today. But Alaska is really growing in popularity. And you work for, Holland. Tell us a little bit about Holland's cruise to Alaska and where they go, or
I'd be happy to.
Years. I mean, I'd love to hear about this, because Shane and I have debated on doing an Alaska cruise, and any information would be amazing.
Oh, sure. I would love to have the opportunity. Well, first, I think, the popularity is just post, 2020. Everybody's traveling. Everybody wants to get out and see. And we're realizing the world is not as big as we thought, right? We always think like, oh, I can't go all the way to Alaska. So that is one of the reasons I believe it's in popularity. If you live here in Texas or where you are in Florida, it's a lovely place to go in the summer because it's going to be nice and cool, but not miserable. And so you're going to enjoy the reprieve from the heat. But I always tell everyone, if you're going to fly and go all the way to Alaska, then you need to do some experience on the land. And however much that is, is a personal thing. I know people don't have a lot of PTO, or they don't have a lot of funding perhaps. And so you got to do what's good for you. But some options on that would be, we personally sell what we call a cruise tour. So a cruise tour is where you can put land either before the cruise or after the cruise. You spend some time on the land, and typically on the short end of 3 days, we take you up into the Denali area, and we have a lodge there. And so we will take you by, it depends where you're going to start, but let's just say we start in Anchorage. Well, first of all, Anchorage is lovely in itself. You could just stay in Anchorage for a couple of nights. They have lots of great things to do. You can do like sea-doos and those crazy things out with a wetsuit and go out to a glacier. You can hike. You can see, you can see a lot of Alaska and see what it's about right there in Anchorage. But we will put you on a beautiful train from Anchorage and take you over to Denali. And our train is a beautiful glass dome train. So the ride is about 8 hours, and you're just going through this beautiful countryside. You can imagine, everywhere you look, it's just a glass encasement. And during the ride, we take you downstairs and we'll feed you breakfast and or lunch. And it's just a great experience. There's a bar on there, an open bar. You've got a lovely seat. It's just super enjoyable. You think it's going to take forever. It just goes by way too fast. So you get to see a lot of the countryside through that train ride. And then once you're in Denali, if you're staying with Holland, you would stay at our lodge. And there is so many fun things there to do. Like we have fire pits. We call it the Denali Square. We'll have musicians out there playing, sometimes just like on their guitars, and everybody's singing along. There's several restaurants that are there. And then we have beautiful accommodations to stay. And then we will work with the national park. And, it is over 9,100 acres, I believe. No, square miles. I get that wrong. 9,100 square miles of it's huge, a very large national park. And they, the people that we work with, we will put you on, it's really like an old school bus, but it's about a 5-hour tour, and we drive you up into the national park. Now, what's interesting is if you go by yourself and you use your own car, you can only go in 15 miles and then they stop you.
Is that for
But if you,
safety reasons?
yeah, they're just really, really strict about preserving the park and they don't want people to disturb it. It's just very much untouched. And the reason we even go in there is so one, you hopefully can see Denali, and two, you want to see the wildlife, which there are what we call the big five. So you want to be able to see a Dall sheep. You want to see the grizzly, the moose, the caribou, and then what we say, the elusive wolf, because no one ever seems to get to see that.
I think I'll steer clear of the grizzly bear and the wolf. I mean, but I heard moose can be kind of dangerous.
You know, they're actually more dangerous than bears because they can trot 35 miles an hour, and more people think that they are fine and get hurt by them because kind of like buffalo in Yellowstone, it's just not a good idea to probably try to get your picture with one. But with our the buses and the people that we work with, we can take you all the way into about 35 miles of the park. And so you really get to go in and everybody's, on there trying to spot animals and look. And this last time that I went, I did see 4 of the 5. I didn't see that wolf. But we had gone in and seen caribou, we saw a moose, and we saw lots of Dall sheep. And we were turning around and leaving, and I was kind of getting a little bit down in the mouth. I was like, I've never seen a bear here. And literally like 10 minutes later, we had a mom and her 2 cubs that looked like they're about to be booted out of the nest because they were quite large. They just came up from the cliff. They walked up in front of our bus and they started trotting right in front of us. So we had to, slow down. And they kind of looked at us like, you can take your time because this is our road and we own it. And then they kept going a little ways and there was like a little turn off on the left-hand side. And they went over there and they literally put a show on for us. They played with each other. They stood on their hind feet. They were just adorable. And then they got right back in front of us and kept going again. So for 20 minutes, we were just following these bears. And I think finally they got bored with us. So they went off and disappeared. But it was super cool to see and so fun. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we saw this. So that was a great experience. So with that, you would get to experience that. It's about a 3-night experience. And then we get you back depending on where you're going to get on a ship, if it's Seward or wherever we're going to, get that line is going to take you. And then you would then sail. And that's called an open jaw cruise. So for people who are going to start in one port, say Seattle, and end up maybe into Seward or somewhere north, that is called an open jaw when you only go one way. And then of course the traditional is round trip. If you started in Seattle and you went all the way around.
Most of the cruises leave from Seattle. You're mentioning Seattle. Is that where most of the Alaska cruises head out of?
For us right here, you're going to either do Seattle or Vancouver for sure. So those are going to be, the 2. And then, you just really want to look at itineraries and see what you're going to see. Holland provides you a glacier guarantee, and we have so many more permits that allow us to see glaciers. There's a lot of places where they only offer cruise lines as a whole, like so many tickets a day that they can go in and look at, these glaciers. And we're offered that before every other because we have been sailing there the longest. So that's something to consider. And being able to say, do you want to see, the Glacier Bay, or do you really want to see a particular, glacier? So, work with the travel agents, what I always say, and tell them what you're really wanting to see. On the trip I just did, after we left Denali, we took a bus to Fairbanks, and then from Fairbanks, we flew to Dawson City. And then from Dawson City, we took a bus, which is going to be replaced next year with an air flight to Whitehorse. And then I'll tell you, we took a bus from Whitehorse to Skagway, and I think that is probably the most beautiful drive I've ever had in my life. It was my first time to do that drive, and it's just absolutely breathtaking. I've never seen anything quite so lovely. And then Skagway's a great town. It's super cute and fun, and offered there is the White Pass train, which is as great of an engineering feat, they say, as the Statue of Liberty. So if you want to ever experience that, it's super cool too. It's an old-timey train car with the benches, and it just hugs the side of the mountains, and you are going all the way up, and great sights of beautiful waterfalls, lakes, scenery. It's just really, really amazing experience to get to do that.
You hear a lot of that about Alaska, and you're reinforcing what I've heard. a lot of trains, a lot of seaplanes getting around.
Yes.
And auto travel while there is limited. Was it Juneau? You can't get into without a ship or a seaplane?
I think you're probably right. Now you're going to start testing me on all the things. I'm not sure. But Juneau is known for, you just to know, is Tracy crab legs. Everybody has to go there to get their crab legs. And I would say it's a great opportunity to see whales. So when you think about going on an Alaska cruise, people are thinking, oh, I'm going to be, standing on the side of the ship here and I'm going to see all these whales and they're going to be in and out of the water. Well, that's not really true. You might see a whale. If you do, you're lucky to see one probably. But if you go into Juneau, you will be able to take an excursion where you get on a boat. I don't know how big of a boat it is. It carries about 50 people, and it takes you into the bay, and you are guaranteed to see lovely opportunities with whales. They're feeding and they're swimming and they're all around you, and they're literally like 20 feet from you. It's an amazing experience.
What kind of whales are in Alaska? Is that like a killer whale, like orca, or?
Yeah, you'll see orcas. I had friends that went out and they actually went kayaking out of Skagway, and they had orcas just come up right by them. So that's pretty just, like, wow.
The natural beauty of Alaska is I mean, I can't think of a state. Well, every state has its own beauty. Let's get that out. I mean, even places like New York, Western New York and stuff have a great, but Alaska really sets itself apart because you have this area at one part in southern Alaska is forests and pine trees, and then the further north you get more of a tundra type of thing, and oil cities. And from what I understand, the waterways to get there's only certain times of year that you can go because other times of year it's rough.
Must be frozen. You're probably taking sled dogs if you need to at some point. That's for sure.
So these cruises that you guys go on, what generally how long are they?
Yeah. So, you can do something, well, with the cruise tour, like what we did, I was referencing that. It's really, really a great one because you can do the land for, say, we did 7 nights and then we were on the cruise for 4 days. So it gives you a taste of both. You get to see the glaciers and you get to see the landscape from the water, which is important to see. And you want to see, all of the really cool, the icebergs and the whole experience like that. But then, like I say, I just feel like if you don't do the land, you're missing the opportunity to really see Alaska. If you go out of Seattle, you can do a 7-day round trip, and that is easy in and easy out. If you're just like, I can't do the land, but I want to see what I can. Well, you're definitely going to see some land because whenever we poured into those different ports like Juneau or Skagway or Ketchikan, you're going to be able to go into the town. You can do excursions. You can go in and salmon fish, go watch bears. You can take an air flight if you want to a glacier. So there's opportunities to still do things on the land. When you do it, it's just a little bit more rushed. But that is an easy way to still see Alaska is just, go over to Seattle, hop over there, spend a day, enjoy Seattle for a day, see the fish market and stay the night, and then hop on a cruise and you've got 7 days of fun ahead of you.
So what is it? What does it hug kind of the coastline? Do you go out to the Aleutian Islands, or does it stop before you go to the Aleutians? Or
boy, you're really just going to get my knowledge here. Well, we try to stick along and try to do the inside passage so that we can, see as much as the scenery that we can and not bore you with just the water. So yes, and then along, as I said, you're going to be able to go into. I wish I could tell you all the different glacier names that you're going to be able to see. But what's really cool about it is they'll take you up into kind of a little niche, like bay area looking situation, and they'll just stop the ship and they'll do a complete 360 turn on that ship. And it's just really cool experience because you can just stand there and then something that we do on Holland is you can even go out to the front or the bow of the ship and take a blanket and they'll serve you hot chocolate, or what we're known for is hot pea soup. And because we're very, Dutch, and we want to just pamper you while you're out there, and you're just really taking in from the outside of the ship the air, the scenery, the Christmas of the coolness. It's just such an experience. And that 360 turn is just kind of mesmerizing. It's almost like you're in a snow globe, and you're kind of like inside of it. And you're like, wow, this is super cool that I'm right here in this very huge world of ours and seeing this.
So how many people are usually, can a cruise ship hold, like something like that? I mean, I was on a cruise about a year and a half ago in the Caribbean, and most everybody goes to the Caribbean on their first cruise.
For sure.
There seem to be like a lot of people, but the photos I see of the Alaskan cruises, the ships seem a little bit smaller. Maybe I'm wrong, but how many? Like,
no, you're
ship, how many people?
Well, you're right. There can be big ships and there's little ships. So the first thing I'd love to address about cruising in general is, I have a lot of people who say, "Oh, I went on a cruise and it was a terrible experience. I'm never going to go on one again." Or I went on a cruise and I wasn't sure about this or that. There was too many people. Or they're scared to go on a cruise because they think they're going to get, ill, or there's too many people on the ship. So let's just address that whole thing real quick. Okay. I like to tell people cruises and cruise ships are like hotels. So it's a little bit easier to say, there's everything, let's say from a Days Inn or a Super 8 motel all the way up to, say, the Ritz-Carlton, right? And the Ritz, right? So there's everything in between. And I think you have to realize that with cruise lines, it's the same way. So you're going to have the cheap, dirty cruises that are going to be what we call right here in Texas, we call it the Redneck Riviera out of Galveston. We're going to take probably the least attractive ship, the one that's just probably old and needs to be retired, but still running. And the people are still going to be great service and you're still going to have a lot of fun, but it's just a quick, dirty, easy trip and it's not going to cost you very much money and you get to taste it. Well, that's good and bad. You get to taste it and you get to see what it's about. But some people think, well, that really was kind of cheap and kind of terrible. So I say to people, give it a chance and think about it as maybe you need to move up to the Marriott, or maybe you're more of a W Hotel kind of girl, or maybe you really want to stay in the Ritz. So you have to find the cruise line that's going to fit your personality. Another thing to understand is that a lot of people don't realize is that there's like these umbrellas. So you have like Royal Caribbean, and they own Celebrity Cruises, and they have Silver Seas. So that's kind of their premium product. So I work with Holland America. We're owned by Carnival Corporation. And so under Carnival, we have the Carnival ships. We have Princess, there's Holland, there's Cunard, and there's Costa. So there's a lot of brands underneath that. And you'll have the same for NCL, and you'll have the same, there's just different umbrellas of different brands. And you're going to have even in that ship. So let's just talk about Carnival. You're going to have a premium top-end, brand new, beautiful ship all the way down to that one that's a little clunky that we're just doing the cheap, dirty, cruises out of Texas. That's
right. What it is, yeah.
But it's not going to be comparable if you said, oh gosh, I went on the XYZ, which is the top end, whichever brand that you went on or the name of the ship. So Holland, we have 11 ships, and we're pretty much, we feel like a premium class across the board. We don't really have that really, really low end, or we do have a high end. We love our Pinnacle class. That's our newest fleet, and we love that Pinnacle class. She's a show off. And that's what we typically would suggest, and that's what I was on in Alaska. But we're very much known for our legendary and Grand World cruises. So that's anything where you're getting into 30 plus days. We have a 160-day world cruise. You're becoming, that's your home. And so we look at like our Zuiderdam. She's a smaller ship. She's probably only going to be holding about 2,200 people. And we really make it like a neighborhood. In fact, on those world cruises, they really divide the ship as like a neighborhood, and they'll have block parties. People decorate their block a certain way. You kind of decorate your room just like home. And it's just a complete different experience. And so that's not something like that maybe you would see on Icon of the Seas, who has 10,000 people on there. I think it holds like 75 or 7,300 passengers, and the rest of its crew members. Wow. So you always have to think whenever you hear like, oh, a ship carries X many people, Well, perhaps it does, but it's not all going to be consumers. You have to think there's going to be that crew deck. So Holland, we're very proud because we have a 2-to-1 ratio for our guests to our crew, and we're just all about our service. And we've won the Cruise Critic Service Award for 3 years in a row, and we think we do cruising very well, and especially to Alaska.
6 months living on a cruise ship is a long time. I've seen a lot of that on the internet. I don't know, man. That's I mean, some people, that's their thing. I mean, like, that'd be great, but 6 months might be a little bit long for somebody like me. But the one thing I did notice when I was on a cruise, and Holland, I'm assuming probably follows the same, guidelines as everybody else is. The diversity and internationalists of the crew. I was I've met so many people from the Philippines, and I met people from Germany, and I've met people from Mexico, and all over the world that work in various aspects of the crew, whether it's laundry services or people that work in the food service or what have you. I mean, do you guys have a lot of that on your cruise ships as well?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I think that is probably the best. It is such a huge provider for income for families. There are so many working people, like you said, in the Philippines, and we're supporting maybe 2 or 3 families by one person being able to work for us. So they are as dedicated to us as we want to be to them. And we really value the fact that they're taking sometimes, 6 months on a contract of their life to spend on a ship to serve our guests. And, they're just really across the board, no matter what their nationality is. They're just all beautiful people. And there's a huge science, I think behind that. I wish I knew more about it. It fascinates me, but the amount of hours they work, the shifts that they have, how they set up the roommates, the way that they just rotate, even, not only the guests, but our crew members, so that there's just harmony. Because if you can imagine having to live with that kind of people in such tight quarters at 6 months at a time on a contract, that it's not always going to be pleasant. So, I think they do a really, really nice job on how to keep happiness between them. They forge great relationships. I've seen some times where then now there's a husband and a wife working because they met on the ship, and they're decided that they're going to marry, and they work the same contracts, and one's housekeeping and one's working a bar or something like that. But yes, and I would say, one, you don't see many Americans, and I think it's sadly to say, because we probably don't want to work that hard. They are working, 12-hour, 14-hour shifts. It's a hard job. It's hard work, and I applaud that they can do it, because I'm not sure I could. But one way you will see probably more Americans is in our entertainment. So we do, have our own production shows, and a lot of dancers, singers, and the musicians. You kind of see them there. And I actually tried to get my daughter Avery after high school, because she was a dancer. I was like, gosh, take a year, go dance on a cruise ship, do the production shows, see the world. It's a great opportunity. You make all this money, throw it into your banking account. You're getting your food and your room for free, basically. And she was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. And today she would say, man, I should have done that when I was in great shape, because what a great opportunity it would have been. So, but you're absolutely right. We do like to employ just a ton of people, but really it's not about their nationality. It's just about their service heart and how they want to serve our guests.
I remember being on a cruise ship, and when I saw this one taller gentleman, he was bald, not like me getting thin. I mean, he was bald, and he had a very thick Eastern European accent. I want to say like maybe Polish or something along that line. And I sat back and I said, man, if I had to hire somebody to work for me, it would be this guy, because not only was he, when his people were falling behind or maybe couldn't keep up, or they had a big workload, he was putting food out, he was putting off tables, and I'm just like, this guy is a machine, and he appreciates the work. Which brings me to my next thing. I mean, we're talking about staff. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes here. Literally, tell me about the chefs. Tell me about the cuisine, because a lot of people go on these cruise ships to try the culinary stuff, the big food, the world famous chefs.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to hear about it. And I know that the fans would love to hear about food on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I'm a foodie, so let's talk about it. Well, I really love the fact that, probably 5 years ago, you could go on a cruise and it was very disconnected. So you could be going, say, sailing into Rome, somewhere on the Italy coast, and you're being served up a pot roast or, some tacos or something for dinner, just something crazy like that. And there's a huge disconnect. You're like, wait, I'm here in Italy and I'm not going to get Italian food offered to me. So we have really worked, in the last 5 years and really, the past 18 months or so to bring the cuisine to be more local. So that doesn't mean just only serving food that resonates with the area, but we also are sourcing our food locally. So we're bringing on those fruits and the vegetables and even the fish. We have a really fantastic fish program. It's called the Fresh Fish program. It's a hard one to say, but we are guaranteeing that we're bringing fish from port to plate in 48 hours. So wherever we are in that region, we try to source the local fish for sure. And then we're making those dishes to be where you're experiencing. So in Argentina, you're going to probably get a great piece of meat and some, lovely vegetables. If you are in the Med, you're going to definitely see those fish in lighter fares. So I think that's something that we've really strived to work on, and we're just really proud of our cuisine now. So we always had the main dining room where you have that experience, and we have recently also partnership with Chef Morimoto, who is a fantastic, Asian chef inspired, lovely sushi opportunities there to work into. And so sometimes we will have on our menu like an entree that just says it's been endorsed or like he's influenced that cuisine. That it's like a Morimoto special. But then we also have our specialty restaurants. And so those will break off, and we have like a steakhouse. We have a really great French restaurant. We have an Italian restaurant, and then we have an Asian restaurant, and we'll have either the Morimoto at sea. And some of our ships, we don't have a designated restaurant for him, but we'll do a pop-up. So one night in the Asian restaurant, it's dedicated to him and his menu. So that's one of our chefs that we definitely lean into for his inspiration. But you're absolutely right. When I worked at Celebrity, we really leaned into our relationship with Daniel Boulud, and he really took us from James Beard over to the Michelin star inspired menu, and they were able to put the first Daniel Boulud restaurant at sea, which was a huge feather in their cap at the time for sure. So I think cruise lines are getting smarter about that. We can't just put out the food that you think is like a buffet style. Even our buffets are just fantastic. Yeah, you gotta step it up. And we're really proud of the fact that we make all of our pastas, all of our breads, the soup bases, everything is made fresh on board.
And I can't imagine the mammoth undertaking that you guys have to get when you get to the port, not only for food, but for cleansers and paper products and,
Yes.
medical supplies and everything. I mean, and the logistics of just running a cruise ship, I mean, it's like being in the U.S. Navy. It really is.
For sure. Yes.
The logistics of it, and people don't really understand the logistics that go into these cruise ships. And the cruise industry also hurt. We talked earlier about 9/11 and the airline industry, but the cruise industry also hurt. And I remember hearing stories about people that were stuck on cruise ship for like a week or two during COVID. They weren't allowed to land, or if
Right.
they were American, they were allowed to come to the U.S. But if they weren't, they had to stay on the cruise ship. And I know you weren't in the industry at that time, but I'm sure you heard stories.
I was in the industry.
Oh,
I worked,
were?
for 2020. I did in COVID. I was with Celebrity. Unfortunately, a lot of times we were trying to get into ports and we were just told, no, you can't come in here. And they pushed us away. And so we kept going and going. We had most of our ships kind of land where they needed to, but we had one that was just kind of out at sea a little bit longer than we wanted to be. I think it took about a week for them to finally come back into a U.S. port, and we got our passengers safely off. I'll tell you, that was a really terrible time, but also a really great time to see humanity. So one of the things I would have to just shout out to is our crew stuck with our guests, and they didn't hop off at the first chance. Kind of like the pilot doesn't get off right until everybody else does. So we had a lot of our crew, as you mentioned, in the Philippines. They needed to get home, and we couldn't get them into a port to fly home because nobody really wanted to take the chance of like, what are you bringing on land, and what are you going to take into the air? And rightly so. I suppose I was a little frustrated at the time, but looking back, maybe it was the right decision. So we literally took our cruise ship and we loaded it up with our personnel and we cruised them to go home. We took them home. So I don't think a lot of people see the humanitarian side of what cruises do. So
That's a story that did not make the news. I'm really
no, it doesn't.
I didn't realize Holland did that. That was
That's crazy. And on the backside of yes, it's amazing. And on the backside of that, whenever the vaccines were starting to be available, we also were the first cruise line that we took a staff over and we inoculated the Philippines and their family, and we took care of them because we wanted them to be first safeguarded because we knew we couldn't do business without them coming back. So we provided all of those vaccines to that community and made sure that they were all going to stay healthy and, protect them as best as we could. That also didn't make the news. In addition to that, we try to help whenever there's hurricanes. A lot of people don't realize that whenever there's hurricanes and these islands are hit, they'd have nothing. There's no electricity. They don't have water. They don't have ice. They literally have nothing at times. So many cruise lines do this where they will offer up a ship and they'll take water and food and personnel and Red Cross members, and we will just go over there and bank, and we'll kind of be like a hub for them so that we're providing them food and we're providing some safety. And if there's Americans that are stuck on an island at the time they need to get home, well, then we'll bring them back home if we need to and port them back into the Florida ports. So there's a lot of great things that I think cruise lines do that don't really make the press, but it's just knowing that they have a good heart at the bottom of it and they're doing the right thing.
I had no idea that the cruise lines did that. Because going across that big, vast ocean like that from the United States to the Philippines is nuts. You see all the time where ships are attacked off the coast of Somalia by pirates.
Yes.
That's the first thing that would come to my mind is, piracy. It's no laughing matter. And some of these cruise ships have like sonic sounds and stuff like that. Or water cannons they put out. And
yes.
Wow. I'm blown away. I didn't know that. I was today years old when I learned that. That's my hat's off to Holland.
Yeah, I think, and not just Holland. I think, there's several that do it out there, and it's just the right thing to do. So I really think that sadly, we don't say things. We always hear about the bad experiences, right? Like, oh, a ship, ran out of something, or it's like 100 people came off with the norovirus, or, some terrible news. It's like 1 in a million that makes the news, but you don't always hear about the great things that we're doing behind the scenes.
As we kind of wrap up here, Mother, Daughter, God, tell us a little bit about what you guys post and your mission with this.
Yeah. I don't even know what I always talked about. At some points, it's just a conversation, honestly. It's just Avery and I chit-chatting, and sadly, you get the benefit of sitting with us, and that's good or bad. But we have kind of, tried to start out with just some really good basics of things that maybe girls in their early 20s or mid-20s might need to know about just starting out in life. Etiquette in some ways, like we're learning, there's not a lot of people that know some etiquette styles and things that they need to know of when to write a thank you note, when to take a hostess gift. Perhaps we have one on like, do you date to marry or do you date for fun? And that can be controversial, but, we touched that little topic, and we went through some, Avery had a boyfriend, she had some heartbreak, and then now she's got a new boyfriend and she just recently got engaged. So you get to experience that. Yeah. So you get to experience that whole drama of, the ups and the downs and the in-betweens and how to handle those kind of things. We've talked about in-laws. My other daughter was married, and we celebrated her first year of marriage, and she got on and talked about what she experienced as a new bride and kind of things that were maybe a disappointment or things that she thought were hyped up that didn't happen, and then the things that she didn't expect to be really great, how awesome they were. We've had my son on there as a guest speaker and his girlfriend, so we just kind of cover the gamut. It's just kind of whatever we want to talk about. Sometimes we talk about fashion and what's hot. And we've spoken a few times about travel and kind of dug into a bit of, what are the benefits of doing an all-inclusive versus land travel versus cruise. So, you could go and dig into that a little bit if you wanted to, but it's all over the board, honestly. But it's just a fun time for a mother and a daughter to be chatting.
And what places can they find your podcast? You on Spotify? You on Amazon?
We're everywhere. Yeah, we're pretty much on all the sources. When we load it up, it just kind of pushes out to all the different platforms. I think we get the most obviously from Apple, whenever people are listening on their Apple device. But it was really cool the first year that we did it. We literally were just kind of doing it for fun. We didn't expect it to be any big deal. But at the end of the year, we got kind of a little analysis of what our reporting was. And we had hit 8 different countries, one of them being Somalia, which was super cool. Wow. And I think we had 1,400 downloads. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool for like our first year. And we haven't advertised it, and we didn't really do anything but other just throw it out there. So it was after, all that was people just finding it or word of mouth. But it's really fun. It's just honestly more than anything a special time for me to be able to get to sit down with her and chit chat and have some one-on-one conversation with her.
And Somalia is a Christian country too. Most people don't realize that. It's, they think just Muslims and the Muslim religion, but their Christianity, they actually have a different Bible. And I won't go down to that road, but there's a different Bible and a lot of the old Christianity stories in Somalia is, a Christian-based country. A lot of people don't realize that, and it's great to see that you guys are reaching out to the youth, not only as as a mother and daughter figure that are hey, look, we're normal people just like you. We live through this stuff, but also traveling, seeing the world, living life that really that God gave us to go out there and experience and be mom, be daughter, be world travelers. Do everything that God put you here to enjoy, as well as work. Most people get sucked up into work, and then they realize they're 80 years old and they've never been anywhere in their life. And you and your daughter are living the dream. And as we wrap this up, if you could give one message to your fans and to my fans, what would that be?
Oh, I think you kind of hit it. I mean, life is short. In the last 3 years, I've lost more friends at my age than I care to, and I am 55. You asked my age. I or didn't want to ask my age, but I will tell you, I just turned 55, and it's really unbelievable how many of my friends I have lost in the last few years. So it's just really been a wake up call to me to just say, what is the purpose of where we are and what are we doing? And of course, for me, my first purpose is to live a life that, shines to others, and I can hopefully, emulate the love of Christ. But beyond that, I want to be caring, and I want to help people. I try to network people to make them successful or help them, broaden their reach in their life, no matter what it is, whether it's culinary or floral or travel or whatever they enjoy. I'd love to just, help them move along in that passion. But, the world is really a very small place. If we think it's just this huge thing, and growing up in the 70s, I thought I'd never get to see, Europe. I never would be able to go to China. It's so much easier today. And especially with the cruise lines, it's so easy to hit so many places in just a short little bit of time. So I would say get out of your comfort zone, push yourself, find somebody that loves travel as much as you do. And if you don't, go by yourself. You'll find a friend, and just see what is out there, because not only does it let you appreciate what's out there, it might also change your mind of your views, because you might realize that your little perfect world is not like the rest of the world. And there's a lot of people out there that live in poverty, and they don't have the wonderful American life that we have. And we take things for granted, honestly, that how great we have it here. And so it might just open up your eyes a little bit, and you might want to be, a little bit more cautious in how you think about things and how you say things. So that would probably be my mission statement there.
The world has definitely changed. And when I was a kid, you had East and West Germany. You couldn't go to the Soviet Union. Thank God our kids don't live in that world where you're hiding under your desk at school. But the world's definitely changed. And for our fans out there, I'd like you to go out, find Mother, Daughter, God, and go and subscribe and listen to their channel. I know we are going to definitely follow them and follow Letitia and her family's adventures around the world and see what's going on and just hear maybe a different aspect of things. And if you are a godly person or just interested in just life in general, how mom and daughter and sons and family work, go and subscribe to her. Look for her up on her Instagram, on social media. Definitely give her a shout out and give her an opportunity. And for the Kling Connection, we'd like to thank you for tuning in today. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. We're also on Rumble. We're on Spotify. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can find us anywhere. Go there and subscribe, like, share, and go out and find Letitia. And until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Kling Connection Travel Talk podcast. Huge thanks to our guest, Letitia Johnson from Mother Daughter God podcast, for sharing her incredible travel stories and experiences. Until next time, keep exploring, one journey at a time.